Before Europe rose, Africa's age of powerful kingdoms long before Europe became the axis around which global history is often told, Africa was already old with power. Its kingdoms had risen, matured, and in some cases declined while much of Europe remained politically fragmented, economically modest, and technologically uneven. This was not a silent or marginal age. It was a period of wealth accumulation, imperial ambition, intellectual production, military innovation, and global connection. Africa was not waiting to be discovered. It was governing itself, trading with the world, and shaping history on its own terms. Across the continent, powerful kingdoms emerged in response to geography and opportunity. Rivers, forests, deserts, and coastlines were not obstacles but engines of state formation. African rulers understood how to harness land, labor, and belief systems to create enduring political orders. Authority was not random, it was institutional. Power rested on control of trade routes, taxation systems, armies, and sacred legitimacy. These kingdoms were not identical, but they shared a common truth. They were built to last. In West Africa, the rise of centralized states was closely tied to trade. Long before European ships arrived on the Atlantic coast, African merchants were moving goods across vast distances. Gold from the forests of modern-day Ghana and Ivory Coast traveled north across the Sahara. Salt from the desert mines moved south to feed populations who depended on it for survival. Whoever controlled these routes controlled wealth, and whoever controlled wealth could build armies, cities, and authority. One of the earliest examples of this was the ancient Ghana Empire, which flourished centuries before medieval Europe found its footing. Ghana's rulers did not mine gold themselves, they controlled access to it. By taxing traders and regulating exchange, they turned geography into power. Arab chroniclers wrote with awe about Ghana's court, its disciplined army, and the splendor of its king. This was not a primitive society. It was a bureaucratic state operating within a global economic system. When Ghana declined, it was not because Africa regressed, but because power shifted. The Mali Empire rose in its place, refined statecraft further, and expanded influence across West Africa. Under rulers like Sundiata Keita and later Mansa Musa, Mali became one of the most powerful states on earth. Its wealth was legendary, but its true strength lay in administration, law, and learning. Cities like Timbuktu became global centers of scholarship where law, science, philosophy, and theology were studied and preserved. While Europe struggled through cycles of plague and feudal warfare, Mali maintained universities, libraries, and a literate elite connected to North Africa and the Middle East. Mali's gold underwrote economies far beyond Africa. It flowed into the Mediterranean world, stabilizing currencies and funding states that would later claim global dominance. Yet Mali was not dependent on outsiders. Its internal economy was strong, its agricultural base secure, and its political structure resilient enough to govern vast territory. Even when Mali eventually declined, it gave rise to yet another power, the Songhai Empire, whose capital at Ga became one of the largest cities in the world at the time. Songhai rulers commanded professional armies, river fleets, and complex bureaucracies. They governed millions. While West Africa mastered desert and river trade, East Africa looked outward across the Indian Ocean. Along the Swahili coast, city-states like Kyoto, Mombasa, and Zanzibar emerged as maritime powers. These were African cities, African-ruled, African-built, yet deeply cosmopolitan. Their merchants traded gold, ivory, timber, and enslaved people with Arabia, Persia, India, and China. Chinese porcelain and Persian glass found in Swahili ruins testify to a global network that existed centuries before European colonialism. These cities were not colonies. They were sovereign states negotiating trade on equal terms. Their architecture blended African, Arab, and Persian styles, creating a distinct Swahili civilization. Their language became a major lingua franca of East Africa. Their rulers minted coins, maintained navies, and negotiated diplomacy across oceans. At a time when most Europeans rarely traveled beyond their immediate regions, African merchants were participating in transcontinental commerce. Further inland, the Kingdom of Ethiopia stood as one of the world's oldest continuous states. Long before most European nations existed, Ethiopia had kings, courts, written laws, and a strong sense of identity. It adopted Christianity in the 4th century, developed its own script, and maintained diplomatic relations with Byzantium and the Islamic world. Ethiopian rulers defended their sovereignty for centuries against foreign invasions, preserving independence while much of the world fell under empires. When Europe later expanded aggressively into Africa, Ethiopia would draw on this long tradition of statehood to resist colonization successfully. In Central Africa, kingdoms like Congo and Luba developed sophisticated political systems rooted in both spiritual authority and administrative control. The Kingdom of Congo governed a large population through appointed officials, provincial governors, and a centralized monarchy. Long before Europeans arrived, Congo had cities, roads, and organized production. When contact with Portugal began, it was not between a civilized Europe and a primitive Africa, but between two states negotiating power, though one would later pursue domination. Southern Africa also witnessed monumental state building. Great Zimbabwe, built between the 11th and 15th centuries, stands as undeniable evidence of African engineering and economic strength. Its massive stone structures, constructed without mortar, required advanced planning, skilled labor, and centralized authority. The city was a hub in Indian Ocean trade, exporting gold and cattle wealth while importing luxury goods from Asia. There is no credible evidence that Great Zimbabwe was built by anyone other than Africans, despite centuries of attempts to deny that reality. Across the continent, African kingdoms demonstrated a clear understanding of power. They raised armies not only through force, but through loyalty and obligation. They ruled through councils, clan systems, and legal traditions that balanced authority with accountability. Kings were often seen as sacred figures, but they could also be removed if they failed their people. This was governance, not chaos. Religion played a unifying role, but it did not erase African identity. Islam spread across North and West Africa, Christianity shaped Ethiopia, and indigenous belief systems remained powerful everywhere. African societies adapted global religions to local realities, producing unique expressions of faith that reinforced state authority rather than undermined it. Religious scholars were advisors, judges, and diplomats. Knowledge was power, and African rulers invested in it. The idea that Africa lacked history before Europe is one of the most damaging myths ever constructed. It was not born of ignorance alone, but of convenience. When Europe later rose through maritime expansion, slavery, and colonization, it needed a story that justified conquest. African achievements were minimized, erased, or attributed to outsiders. Oral histories were dismissed. Written records were ignored. Monuments were explained away. A continent that had once been central to global civilization was recast as timelessly backward. But history does not disappear simply because it is inconvenient. Manuscripts survive in libraries. Ruins stand where cities once thrived. Foreign records still describe African wealth with envy and disbelief. And the structures of modern Africa's languages, borders, trade patterns, and political struggles are shaped by these ancient kingdoms as much as by colonial rule. Before Europe rose, Africa was not waiting in the shadows. It was governing empires, financing global economies, educating scholars, commanding armies, and shaping the world. Europe's later dominance does not erase this truth, it only makes remembering it more urgent. Africa's age of powerful kingdoms was not a prelude to history. It was history itself, complex, global, and profoundly human.